Good afternoon, Jasmine. What are your questions for today? The topic is mineral nutrition and plants. Good afternoon, Hassam. What are your questions for today?
Good afternoon.
What topic have you prepared, Hassam?
What?
Which topic have you prepared?
Just a minute.
Today is mineral nutrition in plants. So if there is no questions, then let's start the class. And today's topic is mineral nutrition and transport in plants. Uh, so, do you have a backyard at your home? No one? And before Hussam, do you have
Have what?
backyard?
No.
Okay, that's fine if you don't have. Just if you have a backyard, then probably you put some minerals to increase the crops, and this is common technique. So before we start, I would like to remind you that I will not email you anymore the links. The link is constant. You should log in yourself. So at the time I log in, every one of you should be already here at 9 o'clock. Agreed?
Okay.
And everyone, I mean everyone in the group, not only like those who usually attend. I usually see uh, Asma, Jasmine, Fatma, Mohammed, and some. So that's so all group members should be already here and ready, and chapter should be prepared already. You should read the chapter before the class, like the night before or the evening before, so or several days before, and then you should ask the questions. So until
We will be ready for what?
sorry,
So I didn't hear. We will be ready for what?
ready for the discussion of the chapter. You should read the chapter. I will ask you questions about the chapter. You can
When?
ask me the questions that something you cannot understand. The
Okay.
topic list is Do you have topic list?
No.
Why? Osam, I sent you topic list in September. Could you please, Osam, could you please send the topic list to other group members that don't have them?
I sent it.
You sent?
Yes, of course.
But you just told that you don't have that. Oh, that's another Muhammad. So
Okay. Maybe I have.
you have? Okay. So you look the next topic from this topic list and then prepare that topic. Chapter numbers are the same as in the book. So the chapter names are the same. Okay, that's please remember all that and prepare for the classes. So soil is the ground that is underfoot and is relatively thin layer of earth crust modified by the natural actions of weather, wind, water, and organisms. It's easy to take soil for granted. We walk on and over in throughout our lives, but we rarely stop to think about how important it is to our survival. Vast number and kinds of organisms colonize soil and depend on it when shelter and food. Most plants anchor themselves in soil and from it they draw water and essential minerals. Many elements essential for plant growth are obtained directly from the soil. Most plants cannot survive on their own without soil, and because we depend on plants on our food, neither there could humans exist without soil. And we also uh, build houses on our soil. So to make a house, you should first build a basement. So the base of the house that is also anchored to the soil. So that is why uh, if you don't want to live in a boat or the car, then you should also so uh, your life depends on the soil. Soils are generally formed from rocks that is called uh, parent material, and it's gradually broken down or fragmented into smaller and smaller particles by biological, chemical, and physical weathering processes. Two important factors that work together in the weathering of rock are climate and organisms. When plant roots and other organisms living in the soil respire, they produce carbon dioxide with, which diffuses into the soil and reacts with soil water to form carbonic acid. Soil organisms such as lichens, which are dual organisms composed of a fungus and algae or cyanobacterium, produce other kinds of acids. These acids etch tiny cracks or fissures in rock surface. Water then seeps into these cracks. If the parent material is located in a temperate climate, the alternate freezing and thawing of the water during winter break off small pieces of rock, causing the cracks to enlarge. Like if you put uh, a glass bottle with water to the fridge, What happens with that? Hussam, what happens? I will tell you that your bottle will be completely destroyed because the water increase in the volume when it freezes. So same is here. Small plants then become established and send their roots into the larger cracks, fracturing the rock further. Topography, which is a region's surface features, such as the presence or absence of mountains and valleys, is also involved in soil formation. Steep slopes often have little or no soil on them because gravity continually transports soil and rock down the slopes. Runoff from precipitation tends to amplify erosion on steep slopes. Moderate slopes, on the other hand, may have less downhill transport and therefore form deep soils. The disintegration of solid rock into finer and finer mineral particles and the accumulation of organic material discussed later in the soil take an extremely long time, sometimes thousands of years. Soil forms constantly as the weathering of parent material beneath or already formed soil continues to add new soil. Four distinct components compose soil: inorganic material particles, which make up about 45% of a typical soil; organic matter about 5%; water about 25%; and air about 25% as well. The plants, animals, fungi, and microorganisms that inhabit soil interact with it, and minerals are continually cycled from the soil to organisms which use them in their biological processes. When the organisms die, bacteria and other soil organisms decompose their remains, so the minerals return to the soil. The inorganic mineral particles which come from weathered rock provide anchorage and essential minerals for the plants, as well as pour space for water and air. Because different rocks consist of different materials, soils vary in mineral composition and chemical properties. Rocks rich in aluminium form acidic soils, for example, whereas rock that contain silicates of magnesium and iron form soils that may be different in calcium, uh, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Also, soils formed from the same kind of parent material may not develop in the same way because other factors such as weather, topography, and kinds of organisms differ. The texture or structural characteristics of a soil is determined by the percentages of different sized inorganic mineral particles: sands, silt, and clay. The size assignments for sand, silt, and clay give soil scientists a way to classify soil texture. Any particles larger than 2 millimeters in diameter, called gravel or stones, are not considered soil particles before they do not have any direct value to plants. The largest soil particles are called sand, 0.02 to 2 millimeters in diameter. The medium-sized particles are called silt, uh, zero, they are 0.002 to 0.02 millimeter in diameter, and the smallest particles are called clay, less than 0.002 millimeter in diameter. Sand particles are larger enough to easily see, and silt particles about the size of flour particles are barely visible. Most individual clay particles are too small to see with an ordinary light microscope. They can be seen only under an electronic microscope. A soil's texture affects many of the soil's properties, in turn influencing plant growth. The clay component of a soil is particularly important in determining many of its characteristics because clay particles have the greatest surface area of soil particles. Uh, if the surface areas of about 450 grams of clay particles were laid out side by side, they would occupy 1 hectare. That is pretty much. It's like a field. Each clay particle has predominantly negative electric charges on its outer surface that attract and reversibly bind cations, which are positively charged mineral ions, such as potassium and magnesium. Because many cations are essential for plant growth, cation absorption is an important aspect of soil fertility. Roots secrete protons, which are exchanged for other positively charged mineral ions attracted to the surface of soil particles, in a process known as cation exchange. The plant's roots absorb these freed ions and the water that forms a film around the soil particles. In contrast, anions, which are negatively charged mineral ions, are repelled by the negative surface charges of clay particles and tend to remain in solution. Anions such as nitrate are often washed out of the root zone by water moving through the soil. Soil always contains a mixture of different sized particles, but the proportions vary from one soil to another. A loam, which is an ideal agricultural soil, has an optimal combination of different sized soil particles. It contains approximately 40% each of sand and silt and about 20% of clay. Generally, the larger particles provide structural support, aeration, and permeability to the soil, whereas the smaller particles bind together into aggregates or clumps and hold minerals and water. Soils with larger proportions of sand are not as desirable for most plants because they do not hold water and minerals ions well. Plants growth in such soils are more susceptible to drought and mineral deficiencies Soil with larger proportions of clay are also not desirable for most plants because they have poor drainage and often do not provide enough oxygen. Clay soils uh, in agriculture tend to get compacted, which reduces the number of soil spaces filled by water and air. The organic matter in soil is composed of litter, dead leaves and branches of the soil surface, droppings, animal dung, and the remains of dead plants, animals, and microorganisms in various stages of decomposition. Microorganisms, particularly soil bacteria and fungi, decompose organic matter, that is, break it down into simpler materials. During decomposition, essential mineral ions are released into the soil, where they are bound by soil particles or absorbed by plant roots. Organic matter increases the soil's water-holding capacity by acting much like a sponge. For this reason, gardens often add organic matter to soils, especially sandy soils, which are naturally low in organic matter. The partly decayed organic portion of the soil is referred as humus. Humus, which is not a single chemical compound but a mixture of many organic compounds, binds mineral ions and holds water. An average humus persists in agricultural soil for about 20 years, although certain compounds of humus may persist for hundreds of years. Humus is somewhat resistant to decay, but a succession of microorganisms gradually reduces it to carbon dioxide, water, and mineral ions. Organic matter dominates some soils. Peat soils, which consists almost entirely of undecayed plant remains, may form where poor drainage limits decomposition by soil-dwelling bacteria. Soil has numerous pore spaces of different sizes and around and among the soil particles. Pore spaces occupy roughly 50% of a soil's volume and are filled with varying proportions of soil air and soil water. Both air and water are necessary to produce a moist but aerated soil that sustains plants and other soil-dwelling organisms. Water is usually held in the smaller pores, whereas air is found in the larger pores. After a prolonged rain, almost all the pore spaces are filled with water, but water drains rapidly from the larger pore spaces, drawing air from the atmosphere into those spaces. Soil air contains the same gases as atmospheric air, although they are usually present in different proportions as a result of cellular respiration by roots and other soil organisms. There are less oxygen and more carbon dioxide in soil air than in atmospheric air. Among the important gases in soil are oxygen, required by roots and soil organisms for aerobic respiration, nitrogen, used by nitrogen-fixing bacteria, and carbon dioxide, involved in soil weathering. Soil water originates as precipitation, which drains downward, or as groundwater, water stored in porous underground rock, which rises upward from the water table, the uppermost level of groundwater. Soil water contains low concentrations of dissolved minerals that enter the roots of plants when they absorb water. Water not bound to the soil particles are absorbed by roots, percolates, drains down through soil, carrying dissolved minerals in it. The removal of dissolved materials from soil by percolating water is called leaching. The decomposition of leached material in the lower layers of soil is known as eluviation. Iron and aluminium compounds, humus and clay are some of the alluvial materials that gather in the subsurface portion of the soil. Some substances are completely leached out of the soil because they are so soluble that they migrate down to the groundwater. It is also possible for water that is moving upward through the soil carry dissolved materials with it. A single teaspoon of fertile agricultural soil may contain millions of microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi, algae, protozoa, and microscopic worms. Many other organisms are also colonize the soil, including plant roots, earthworms, insects, moles, gophers, snakes, and groundhogs. Most numerous in soil are bacteria, which number in the hundreds of millions per gram of soil. Biologists have identified about 170,000 species of soil organisms, but thousands remain to be identified. Little is known about the roles of soil organisms, in part because it is hard to study their activities under natural conditions. Bacteria and fungi are important not only in decomposing dead organic material in the soil, but in nutrition cycling, the process by which matter cycles from the living world to the non-living physical environment and back again. Nutrition cycles break down or build up chemicals that plants need. For example, microorganisms are involved in most steps in the nitrogen cycle, which supplies nitrogen, an essential part of proteins and nucleic acids, to organisms. Worms are some of the most important organisms living in soil. Earthworms, one of the most familiar soil inhabitants, ingest soil and obtain energy and raw materials by digesting humus. Castings are bits of soil that have passed through the gut of the earthworm are decomposed on or near the soil uh, surface. In this way, minerals from deep layers are brought to upper layers. Earthworm tunnels aerate the soil, and the worm's waste products and corpses add organic material to the soil. Ants live in the soil in enormous numbers, constructing tunnels and chambers that aerate it. Members of soil-dwelling ant colonize forage on the surface for bits of food which they carry back to their nests. Not all this food is eaten, however, and its essential decomposition helps increase the organic matter in the soil. Many ants are also indispensable in plant uh, reproduction because they bury seeds in the soil. As discussed in chapter previously, soil acidity is measured with the pH scale, which ranges from 0, that is extremely acidic, through 7, that is neutral, to 14, that is extremely alkaline. The pH of most soils ranges from 4 to 8, but some soils are outside this range. The soil of the pygmy forest in Mendocino County, California is extremely acidic, pH 2.8 to 3.9. At the other extreme, certain saline soils in Death Valley, California have a pH of 8.5. Soil pH affects plants partly because the solubility of certain numbers of minerals varies with differences in pH. Plants absorb soluble mineral elements but not insoluble forms. At a low pH, for example, the aluminum and manganese in soil water are more soluble and are sometimes absorbed by roots in toxic amount. At a higher pH, certain mineral salts essential for plant growth, such as calcium phosphate, become less soluble and thus less available to plants. Soil pH greatly affects the leaching of minerals. An acidic soil has less ability than an alkaline soil to bind positively charged ions because the soil particles also bind the abundant protons. As a result, certain minerals are essential for plant growth, such as potassium, are leached more readily from acidic soil. The optimum soil pH for most plant growth is 6.5 to 7.5 because most essential elements needed by plants are available in that range. Soil pH affects plants and other organisms in turn influence soil pH. The decomposition of humus and the cellular respiration of soil organisms and root decreases the pH of the soil. Acid precipitation, a type of air pollution in which sulfuric and nitric acids produced by human activities fall to the ground as acid rain, sleet, snow, or fog, can seriously decrease soil pH. Acid precipitation is one of several factors implicated in forest decline. The gradual deterioration and often death of trees in many European and North American forests is one of the main troubles. Forest decline may be particularly the result of soil changes caused by acid precipitation. In Central European forests that have experienced forest decline, a strong correlation exists between forest damage and soil chemistry altered by acid precipitation. More than 90 naturally occurring elements exist on Earth, and more than 60 of these, including elements as common as carbon and as rare as gold, are found in plant tissues. Not all these elements are considered essential for plant growth, however. 19 elements are essential for most, if not all, plants. 10 of these are required in fairly large quantities, greater than 0.5% dry weight, and are therefore known as macronutrients. These include carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, potassium, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, sulfur, and silicon. The remaining 9 micronutrients uh, are needed in very small or trace amounts for normal plant growth and development. These include chlorine, iron, boron, um, manganese, sodium, zinc, copper, nickel, and molybdenum. 4 of the 19 elements, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen, come directly or indirectly from soil water or from gases in atmosphere. Carbon is obtained from carbon dioxide in the atmosphere during photosynthesis. Oxygen is obtained from atmospheric oxygen and water. Water also supplies hydrogen to the plant. Plants absorb the nitrogen from the soil as ions of nitrogen salts, nitrate, and ammonium. The nitrogen in the nitrogen salts ultimately comes from atmospheric nitrogen and is converted to nitrate and ammonium by various microorganisms in either the soil or the root nodules of certain plants. The remaining 15 essential elements are obtained from the soil as dissolved mineral ions. The ultimate source is the parent material from which the soil was formed. Let us examine the main functions of essential elements. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are found in the structures of all biologically important molecules, including lipids, carbohydrates, nucleic acids, and proteins. Nitrogen is part of proteins, nucleic acids, and chlorophyll. Potassium, which plants use in fairly substantial amounts, is not found in a specific organic compound in plant cells. Instead, it remains as free potassium. It plays a key role in maintaining the turgidity of cells because it is osmotically active. The presence of potassium ions in cytoplasm causes water to pass through the plasma membrane into the cell by osmosis. Potassium is also involved in stomata opening. Calcium plays a key structural role as a component of the middle lamella, the cementing layer between the cell walls and adjacent plant cells. Calcium ions are also important in a number of physiological roles in plants, such as altering membrane permeability and cell signaling. Magnesium is crucial for plants because it is part of the chlorophyll molecule. Phosphorus is a component of nucleic acids, phospholipids, and essential part of cell membranes, and energy transfer molecules such as adenosine triphosphate. Sulfur is essential because it is found in certain amino acids and vitamins. Many plants accumulate silicon in their cells walls and intercellular spaces. Silicon enhances the growth and fertility of some species and may help reinforce the cell walls. Chlorine and sodium are micronutrients that help maintain turgidity of cells. In addition to its osmotic role, chloride and sodium ions are essential for photosynthesis. Six of the micronutrients, iron, manganese, zinc, copper, nickel, and molybdenum, are associated with various plant enzymes, often as enzyme activators, and are involved in certain enzymatic reactions. Boron, present in cell walls, is also involved in nucleic acid metabolism and cell growth. It is possible to conduct mineral nutrition experiments by growing plants in soil because soil contains too many elements. Therefore, nutritional studies require different methods. One of those useful methods of testing whether or not an element is essential is hydroponics, which is the cultivation of plants in aerated water to which mineral salts are added. Hydroponics has commercial applications in addition to its scientific use. If botanists suspect that a particular element is essential for plant growth, they grow plant in a nutrition solution that contains all kinds of essential elements except the one in question. If the plants grow in the absence of the element, do not develop normally, or complete their life cycle, the element may be essential. Additional criteria are used to confirm whether an element is essential. For example, botanists must demonstrate that the element has a direct effect on the plant's metabolism and that the element is essential for a wide variety of plants. Soil is a valuable natural resource on which humans depend for food. Many human activities may generate or aggravate soil problems. For example, mineral depletion may occur in soils that are farmed. In a natural ecosystem, essential minerals removed from the soil by plants are returned when the plants or the animals that have eaten the plants die and are decomposed. An agricultural system disrupts this pattern of nutrition cycling when the crops are harvested. Plant material containing minerals is removed from the nutrition cycle and the harvested crops fail to decay and release the nutrients back to the soil. Over time, soil that is formed inevitably loses its fertility, that is, its ability to produce abundant crops. Home owners often mow their lawns and remove the clippings, similarly preventing decomposition and cycling of minerals that were in the grass blades. The essential material, water, sunlight, and some essential element that is in shortest supply usually limits plant growth. This phenomenon is sometimes called the concept of limiting resources. The three elements that are most often limiting resources for plants are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. To sustain the productivity of agricultural soils, farmers periodically add fertilizers to depleted soils to replace the minerals that limit plant growth. The two main types of fertilizers are organic and commercial inorganic. Organic fertilizers include such natural materials as cow manure, crop residues, bone meal, and compost. Green manure, a special type of organic fertilizer, is a crop such as alfalfa or sweet clover that is planted and then logged into the soil to decompose instead of being harvested. Frequently, plants grow as green manure have nitrogen-fixing bacteria living in root nodules, thereby increasing the amount of nitrogen in soil. Organic fertilizers are complex and their exact compositions vary. The mineral nutrition in organic fertilizers become available to plant only as the organic material decomposes. For that reason, organic fertilizers are slow-acting and long-lasting. Another advantage of organic fertilizers is that in ways that are not completely understood, they change the types of organisms living in the soil, sometimes suppressing microorganisms that cause certain plant diseases. Commercial inorganic fertilizers are manufactured from chemical compounds and their exact compositions are known. Because they are soluble, they are immediately available to plants. Commercial or organic fertilizers are available in the soil for only a short period because they quickly leach away, often into groundwater or surface runoff, and pollute the water. Most commercial inorganic fertilizers contain the three elements, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, that are usually the limiting resources in plant growth. The numbers in fertilizer bags, for example, 10, 20, 20, tell the relative concentrations of each of the three elements, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. One advantage of inorganic fertilizers over organic fertilizers is that one knows precisely how much of a particular element is being applied to the soil. Varying the relative concentration of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium causes different growth responses in plants. When growing a lettuce crop, for example, it is best to use a fertilizer with a high nitrogen content because nitrogen stimulates vigorous vegetative growth of leaves, stems, and roots, rather than reproduction growth of flowers, fruits, and seeds. The application of fertilizer with the high nitrogen content also around tomato plants, however, causes a low production of tomatoes. Also, the roots, stems, and leaves of the tomato plants grow vigorously with the high nitrogen fertilizer. Reproduction is not stimulated. The large plants form few flowers and therefore few fruits. It is environmentally sound to avoid or limit the use of manufactured fertilizers for several reasons. First, because of their high solubility, inorganic fertilizers cause water pollution. Second, manufactured fertilizers do not improve the water holding capacity of the soil as organic fertilizers do. Third, the manufacture of inorganic fertilizers requires a great deal of fossil fuels and is therefore not energy conserving. Now that we have discussed soil and its importance to plants, we examine internal transport in the vascular system of plants. Roots obtain water and dissolved minerals from the soil. Once inside roots, these materials are transported upward to stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. Therefore, sugar molecules manufactured in the leaves by photosynthesis are transported in solution dissolved in water uh, through the plant, including the subterranean roots. Water and dissolved minerals are transported from roots to other parts of the plant by xylem, whereas dissolved sugar is translocated in phloem. Xylem transport and phloem translocation do not resemble the movement of materials in animals because in plants nothing circulates in a system of vessels. Water and minerals transported in xylem travel in one direction only, upward, whereas translocation of dissolved sugar may occur upward or downward in separate phloem cells. In addition, xylem transport and phloem translocation differ from internal transport in animals because movement in both xylem and phloem is driven largely by natural physical processes rather than by pumping organ or heart. How exactly do minerals travel in the continuous system of the plant vascular tissue? First, we examine water and its movement through the plant, and later we discuss the translocation of dissolved sugar. Water initially moves horizontally uh, into the roots from the soil, passing through several tissues until it reaches the xylem. Once the water is in the tracheids and vessel elements of the root xylem, it travels upward through a continuous network of xylem cells from root to stem to leaf. The dissolved minerals are carried along passively in the water, although their initial uptake from the soil may be active. The plant does not expend any energy of its own to transport water, which moves as a result of natural physical processes. The movement of water in the xylem is the most rapid of any movement of materials in plants. How does water move to the tops of plants? It is either pushed up from the bottom of the plant or pulled up to the top of the plant. Although plants use both mechanisms, current evidence indicates that most water is transported through the xylem by being pulled to the top of the plant. Currently, most botanists consider the tension cohesion model, first proposed by Irish botanist Henry in 1896. Uh, the botanist's name is Henry Dixon. Uh, to be the dominant mechanism of xylem transport in most plants. According to the tension cohesion model, also known as Transpiration Cohesion model, water is pulled up the plant as a result of tension produced at the top of the plant. The evaporative pull of transpiration causes this tension, which resembles sucking of a liquid up a straw. Uh, do you use a straw to drink a Coca-Cola? Jasmine, do you like a Coca-Cola? Does
Yes, doctor.
so how do you drink Coca-Cola? Jasmine, how do you drink Coca-Cola? From the bottle or from the cup? Jasmine,
What, doctor?
how do you drink Coca-Cola? From the bottle
Bashal
or from the cup?
from the cup.
Okay, from the cup, do you use a straw? Straw is a little a long stick. Straw. Jasmine, do you use straw or drink it directly from the cup?
Direct from the cup.
Directly. But have you ever tried to use a straw?
What?
Straw.
No?
Straw uh, is a stick that has a hole inside, and you can put it to the water and uh, make this one. like you are making a negative pressure and a suck from the cup with a straw.
شفاطة، أبقى قصدي على الشفاطة.
Instead of sipping, you don't sip, so it's
ولا لا ياسمين أي حاجة بتفرق معايا.
it's more
Yes, doctor. Yes.
it's more convenient way of drinking using a straw. You are sucking the water from the cup.
Again?
Sucking the water. So the same way like you suck water with the straw from the cup, the same way the plants pull up the water from the roots. The evaporative pull of transpiration causes this tension which resembles sucking a liquid up a straw. So the same as you can drink Coca-Cola from the cup with the straw, the same is in the plants. Most water loss from transpiration takes place through the numerous stomata present on leaf and stem surfaces. The tension extends from the leaves, where the transpiration occurs, down the stems and into the roots. It draws water up the stem xylem to leaf cells that have lost water as a result of transpiration and pulls water from root xylem into stem xylem. As water is pulled upward, additional water from the soil is drawn into the roots. Thus, the pathway of water movement is as follows: soil, root tissues, epidermis, cortex, and so forth, root xylem, stem xylem, leaf, mesophyll, atmosphere. Thus, upward pulling of water is possible only as long as there is an unbroken column of water in the xylem throughout the plant. Water forms an unbroken column in a plant because of the cohesiveness of water molecules. Water molecules exhibit cohesion, that is, they are strongly attracted to one another because of hydrogen bonding. In addition, the adhesion of water to the walls of the xylem cells, also the result of hydrogen bonding, is an important factor in maintaining an unbroken column of water. Thus, the cohesive and adhesive properties of water enable it to form a continuous column that is pulled up through the xylem. Is the tension cohesion model powerful enough to explain the rise of water in the tallest plants? Plant biologists have calculated that the tension produced by the transpiration is strong enough to pull down upward 150 meters in tubes the diameter of xylem and phloem. Because the tallest trees are about 117 meters high, the tension cohesion model easily accounts for the transport of water. In the less important mechanism of water transport, known as root pressure, water that moves into a plant's roots from the soil is pushed up through the xylem toward the top of the plant. Water moves from soil into root cells by osmosis. The accumulation of water in root tissues produces a pressure that forces the water up through the xylem. Guttation, the forceful release of liquid water through special openings, hydroponics in leaves, results from root pressure. Root pressure exerts an influence in smaller plants, particularly in the spring when the soil is wet. But it clearly does not cause water to rise 100 meters or more in the tall trees. Therefore, root pressure does not occur to any appreciable extent in summer when water is often not plentiful in the soil. Yet, water transport is greatest during the hot summer days. Minerals are available to plants as ions dissolved in soil water. Because the concentrations of various mineral ions in xylem sap fluid in xylem are different from those in soil water, plants appear to selectively accumulate the mineral ions they require. Most minerals probably enter the root by passing from one cell's cytoplasm to the next, the simplest, or along the interconnected cell walls, the epiplasm, until they reach the Casparian stripe uh, of the endodermis. At this point, minerals enter the endodermal cells by passing through the plasma membranes. Dissolved mineral ions pass through the plasma membranes by active transport. In active transport, the mineral ions move apart against the concentration gradient, that is from an area of low concentration to an area of high concentration of that mineral, through special channels in the membrane. One of many reasons root cells require sugar and oxygen for cellular respiration is that active transport of mineral ions across biological membranes requires the expenditure of energy, usually in the form of ATP. From the endodermis, mineral ions enter the xylem of the root and are conducted to the rest of the plant. At the source, the dissolved sucrose moves from a leaf's mesophyll cells where it was manufactured into the companion cells which load it into the sieve tube elements of phloem. This loading occurs by active transport, a process that requires ATP. The ATP supplies energy to pump protons out of the sieve tube elements, producing a proton gradient that drives the uptake of sugar into the sieve tube elements. The sugar therefore accumulates in the sieve tube elements and at the source. As a result of the increase in dissolved sugar in the sieve tube elements, water moves by osmosis from the xylem cells into the sieve tubes, increasing the turgor pressure, that is hydrostatic pressure, inside them. Thus, phloem loading at the source is as follows. Proton pump moves hydrogen out of sieve tube element. Sugar is actively transported into sieve tube element. Water diffuses from xylem into sieve tube element. Turgor pressure increases within sieve tube. As an its destination, sugar is unloaded by various methods, both active and passive, from the sieve tube elements, which, with the loss in sugar, water moves out of the sieve tubes by osmosis and into surrounding cells. Most of this water diffuses back to the xylem and is transported upward again. The water movement decreases the cargo pressure inside the sieve tubes and the sink. Thus, phloem unloading and the sink proceeds as follows. Sugar is transported out of sieve tube element. Water diffuses out of the sieve tube element into xylem. Target pressure decreases within sieve tube. The pressure flow hypothesis explains the movement of dissolved sugar in phloem because of a pressure gradient. The difference in sugar concentration between the source of the sink causes translocation in phloem. As water and dissolved sugar flow along the pressure gradient, this process, this pressure gradient pushes the sugar solution and mass through the phloem much as water is forced through a hose. Such pressure-driven flow of a solution is known as bulk flow or mass flow. The actual translocation of dissolved sugar in the phloem does not require metabolic energy. However, the loading of sugar at the source and the active unloading of sugar at the sink require energy derived from ATP to move the sugar across cell membranes by active transport. Although the pressure flow hypothesis adequately explains current data on phloem translocation, much remains to be learned about this process. Phloem translocation is difficult to study in plants because phloem cells are under pressure. Cutting into the phloem to observe it relieves the pressure and causes the content of the sieve tube elements, the phloem sap, to exude and mix with the content of other reserve cells that are also unavoidably cut. In the 1950s, botanists began to use a unique research tool to avoid contaminating the phloem sap. Aphids, which are small wingless insects that insert their mouthparts into phloem sieve tubes for feeding. The pressure in the punctured phloem drives the sugar through solution the aphid's mouthpart and into its digestive system. When the aphid's mouthpart is served from its body by a laser beam, the sugar solution continues to flow through the mouthpart at a rate proportional to the pressure in the phloem. This rate can be measured and the effects on phloem transport of different environmental conditions, varying light intensities, darkness and mineral deficiencies, for example, can be determined. The identity of proportions of translocated substances are also determined using several aphid mouthparts. This technique was verified that in most plant species the sugar sucrose is the primary carbohydrate transported in phloem. However, some species transport other sugars such as raffinose or sugar alcohols such as sorbitol. So this is actually a very interesting technique. So that is all for today. Thank you for attending. If there are no questions, any questions? So if there are,
No.
Fatma?
No, thanks.
So thank you to attending too, and see you at the lecture on Thursday. Bye bye.
Bye.